Hi there. Today on Lydia's Books, I'm going to talk about 13 really cool books coming out for May 2026. Now, there are way more, of course, than 13 books coming out this month, especially in horror. There's a lot of them, and a lot that really did catch my eye. So again, it was hard to pick just 13 of them. But I did notice that through this month, there's not any real trend. There's a few throwbacks to really classic, tried and true style horror covers, and there's not like one color that really stands out amongst them all. So it's a nice sort of trend defying month. And I also noticed that a lot of these books are dyed-in-the-wool horror, which is what I tend to choose, and they also only kind of flirt with subgenre. It's not a 100% like haunted house book. It has other things going on. It's not a 100% psychological horror. It has other things going on. So there seems to be sort of like multi-subgenre crossover adjacentry going on. I like it. I'm very, very interested. There's quite a few women-focused books as well, if that is your jam. So yeah, before we dig into that, there is a 14th book on here. You'll know it when you see it. It's still 13 books, but there is a 14th book that is on the list. We'll start it with I Know a Place, Rest Stop and Other Detours by Nat Cassidy. Now, I've not read any Nat Cassidy books. I've said this before. If you've read Mary, let me know, because I want to read Nat Cassidy's books. But this seems like a really good place to start, right? Because it's got the critically acclaimed Rest Stop and Other Short Stories, so you can sample the writing style. The cover of the book is black. It's a black background with red strings holding keys that are hanging that have something that look like googly eyes on them. I do like this cover. I've talked about Rest Stop before, so I do feel like I'm being repetitious here, but I checked the date and it does come out May 5th. But yeah, the font itself is called backslash. It looks like a lot of other fonts though. It's a display font, meaning that it's not a text font. A lot of display fonts are very fancy, very ornate. They only work in big text sizes. They're meant for a display text that is displaying like a headline or something, or an author's name and a title of a book in this case, but it wouldn't work as a type font where you're going to prepare a book report or a novel in that type of face. That's why you don't see like Times New Roman and Arial usually on the front covers of books. But yeah, so I don't know exactly what font this is, but it looks a lot like that Stranger Things font, doesn't it? Except maybe like taller and a little more crisp. There are locations in the world where the light doesn't seem to reach, where no matter how illuminated a place might be, the shadows creep in too strongly to fight back. A suspiciously empty gas station rest stop in the middle of the night, littered by googly eyes. A doctor's office where a bottle of booze and a tear-stained folder await on the desk. A tech millionaire's haunted kitchen. A Bible-quoting ventriloquist's dingy apartment. A yoga retreat in the middle of the desert, silent except for the screaming. These locations and more are your destination alongside the critically acclaimed novella Rest Stop and other original short stories, some of which have never been published. A travelogue down twisting side streets and through alleyways where the darkness has eyes and teeth. Let's hope you make it home in one piece, says the description. It's always weird when the description addresses you, isn't it? But yeah, I like that. I like the cover. It's very compelling. I'm very interested to read some Nat Cassidy. It looks like very plain horror style horror, and as does this next novel. But wow, I'm very interested in this. Like the cover alone grabbed me because this is like B slasher film love. This reminds me of like a Stephanie Sparks novel, right? Neon Moon by Grace R. Reynolds. And yeah, I am very stoked. Incidentally, this font that is saying Neon Moon is called Farmhand, probably. I just thought that was a cute touch. I think that from the cover alone, you can sort of surmise that it is like an axe-wielding maniac under a neon moon. I don't know if they are actually a skeleton though. So be that as it may, Darlene Boone is a survivor. For more than a year, she's been bartending at the famous Tea Garden Saloon, a honky-tonk in the Texas Hill Country, while attempting to put her life back together in the wake of an abusive past. But when an axe-wielding maniac descends on the Tea Garden during one of the bar's busiest nights of the year, Darlene, along with everyone else in the crowded establishment, will have to put down their whiskeys and take up the nearest weapon if they're going to survive this unexpected night from hell. No one knows for sure if they'll make it out alive, least of all Darlene. But one thing's for sure, no matter what, Texans don't go down without a fight. Now, there is a long tradition, if you will, of horror covers from the 80s specifically, with a skeleton type person on the cover that does not feature in the book. So I'm very interested to see if these are like skeletal, Tombs of the Blind Dead, Texan axe-wielding maniacs. And yeah, very well could be. Who knows? If you've read it, let me know. I am very interested, so I'm going to keep my eye out for this one. I love this cover so damn much. It's so cool. And I like the colors too, right? You've got some kind of denim blue in the clothing. You've got those oranges that make up the desert background. It looks very Arizona-y, even though it's Texas. Just really gorgeous looking, all told. Also on May 5th, we have She Waits Where Shadows Gather, a novel by Michelle Tang. And this is another cover, although completely different from the one that we just saw. It's a red background with black text and what looks like pawpaw fruit to me, because pawpaw fruit grow indigenously here in Northern Ontario. And they are sort of like a tropical banana mango flavor thing going on. But because this takes place in the Philippines, these have got to be mangoes. But this font is reminiscent, the way that it is on the black text on a red background. I want to say like, oh, it's a black letter and old style font. It's not. It's a very modern serif font that is stretched tall, and it just looks really gorgeous, and it's evocative of an older style font somehow. I really like what they're doing with this cover. It's very simplistic, very, very plain, but very effective. It doesn't tell you what it's about though. It would if it had a house on the cover, but I digress. Avery and Carlos don't believe in the paranormal. Carlos, the face of a hit reality show exposing fraudsters and debunking myths, thinks he's seen it all, and none of it is real. Their newest adventure takes them to the Philippines and Carlos's ancestral home. Though the family is loath to admit that anything unusual has ever happened in the house, their neighbors believe in spirits and the supernatural. They whisper about the home's sinister history. While the house is dark and all the mirrors are covered, it seems like a regular, creaky old house. But when a devastating car crash leaves Carlos bedridden, he's not only trapped in the house, he's also held hostage in his own body. Avery, now both caretaker and a prisoner, watches helplessly as their once solid marriage crumbles under the weight of secrets and an unspeakable evil. Now, the description does go on from there, but I didn't want to spend like a half hour talking about this one book. It does get into more horrific territory and more paranormal haunted house stuff. It's not really like what strikes me as not being a haunted marriage, right? Like a marriage breaking up, and that's the horror. I don't really go for books like that. So this seems to be not only about that, even though we left off on that note in the description. So yeah, very interested in this because I really do like this traveling idea. We are going to travel quite a bit around the world, not just stuck in North America. In the books that I've chosen for May, there seems to be a lot more translation efforts bringing us horror from every corner of the world. So I think that's really cool. Moving to May 8th, we have The Blood Year Daughter by G.G. Silverman. And I really like this cover because it does have this sort of calligraphic text in white on a black and red background. Now the background is black and red because it's red predominantly with black lace over it. And the black lace is kind of decorated with like wolves and roses and hands. It's very creepy looking, very horror lace. And I really can get behind that. I've always looked for a damask wallpaper that features like antlers and wolves. So yeah, this sort of thing, or spiders would be very, very nice. With, of course, ivy, because you can't have damask without some sort of ivy. But yes, I'm getting distracted. It's like a circular area with a girl in the center. In G.G. Silverman's debut fairy tale horror collection, The Blood Year Daughter, a woman builds husbands out of gravel and slaughterhouse feathers. Two sisters eat cinnamon-scented pieces of their mother, and a charming doctor's murdered bride whispers secrets to his newest wife. Silverman's women and girls escape smiling captors, draw blood to curse their own loved ones, and wield fear to defend themselves in a post-apocalyptic world. They ignore the insults of rotting elder women filled with flies, resist marriage proposals, and fill themselves joyfully with multitudes of snakes. They are murdered and choose to live again. I really love that description. I don't think I've had more fun reading a summary in quite some time. This sounds like something you need to go get. And of course, like, it isn't recycled fairy tales. We've had a lot of that. Like, there's always going to be recyclage of fairy tales so that we can modernize the parable. But this seems like all new, whole cloth fairy tales, and I am very interested in this. So that is definitely one to look for, G.G. Silverman. Next up, on May 12th, we have two books that sort of match a little in their cultish ways. If you like cult horror, these might be for you. Electric Shamans at the Festival of the Sun by Monica Ojeda. And the cover is very pinkish and orangish, like a sunset or something. And it is over top of a big black volcano that is trickling lava that is also in that orangey, sunsetty, not very lava color. Lava's pretty red, but the colors here kind of clash, kind of unsettling. It doesn't look like horror. It looks like a Carlos Castaneda spinoff kind of thing or something. It really does not look like horror. It's got some white thunderbird or cranes in the sky. It just looks like a new age book. Now, it is kind of new agey. In the near future, best friends Noah and Nicole flee their home in Guayaquil, Ecuador to attend the Solar Noise Festival, a week-long retro-futuristic gathering at the foot of an active volcano. While Noah fully embraces the haze of narcotics and hedonism in an effort to obscure her true reason for attending, Nicole senses something darker at play behind the festival's so-called celebration of life. Amid techno-shamanistic poetry, collective hallucinations, and ritual dances, each girl navigates her path in an effort to escape her past and reclaim her right to a future. Vivid, terrifying, and celebratory, Electric Shamans at the Festival of Sun blends the primal with the supernatural, solidifying Monica Ojeda as one of our most singular and exciting voices in Latin American and world literature today. She's working with the same translator that she worked with Jawbone, Sarah Booker. And if you know of other duos like this, where there's a translator that seems to work 100% with the same author, and all the author's books are being brought to an English reading language by the same translator, let me know, because I think that's really interesting. I don't think I've quite noticed that trend before. I'm curious to see if Agustina Basterica's books are translated by the same person. On to the next culty book, Make Me Better, a novel by Sarah Gailey. And I just fell in love with this cover. It's a black background with concentric rings radiating out from the center like ripples on a pond. There's a body floating in the center, so like a sensory deprivation kind of floating thing. But those rings are colored by a pastel gradient, and that same pastel gradient, going from something like yellow to teal, I guess, with pink in the middle, is filling in all of the font. And the font is a sans serif that is quite exciting if you're excited by this G in Gailey like I am. It's all lowercase. It's just a sans serif font in a bold style. It's called what I think is New Cable, and it's a gorgeous, gorgeous font, really. But yeah, it elevates this cover. There's other text on here, like a also written by or some subtitle, that really detract from this really cool design. I wish that extra text wasn't here, because it's a very tight, very compelling, maybe doesn't look like horror, much like the previous book, but I'm very compelled by the font, right? And just the design. Celia is so tired of being alone. All she wants to have is a family, to belong to someone, and that's why she's going to Kindred Cove for the annual Salt Festival, held by a secluded community that lives there. They promise that healing is possible. They promise that transformation is inevitable. There is no grief at Kindred Cove because there is no suffering. Nothing is ever lost. Celia knows that she will find herself at the mysterious island surrounded by the impossible, ever-growing reef. She's ready to be healed, she's ready to be transformed, and she's ready to believe. I listened to a podcast, which I've mentioned before, called Conspirituality, that sort of investigates the dark underbelly from woo-woo and self-help kind of gurus out there in the health industry, and I've always found that super interesting. Now, back in the day, I might have attended a wellness retreat because you could kind of trust them, maybe, right? I mean, you might be poisoned with barium, but I mean, nowadays, I don't think I would trust any of them. And I think that if someone told me they were going on a wellness retreat to a secluded island or to some techno rave to cleanse themselves or something, I would assume that there's a cult behind it. Maybe not 100% horror, like classic horror, right? It is this sort of fear of the new age, fear of cults, fear of a high control group that is very interesting in those preceding books. And we have another set of books, 2 books that sort of play off one another and maybe play off Year of the Blood Daughter. We have Entomology of a Pinup Girl by Lauren Osborne, and I love this cover. It is just kind of plain, it's got a pinup girl on it. It's got pinup girl font in a brush style kind of 50s, 60s script. And it's just got a black shadowy background, white background predominantly. And it's got this girl in a yellow swimsuit and high heels because that's a match made in heaven. And the font color kind of matches her swimsuit, which I find really good design. And that's that kind of like super tight 1960s editorial advertising design that I really, really love. And most people love, like a lot of people love. Of course, we're emulating it a lot these days. So that's why this brush script is happening. And this pinup girl, right? I absolutely like this idea. And like I said, this will play really well with Year of the Blood Daughter, I think. And of course, the next book. A dissatisfied wife wraps herself in a silk cocoon. Teenage girls declare decay as the newest fashion trend. A new religion emerges from blood-sucking moths, and Gret Samsa wakes to find herself transformed not into a cockroach, but a monstrous camel spider, famished and salivating for the man at the door. A surreal exploration of nature, sexuality, desire, and disaster, Lauren Osborne's stunning debut is a must-read for fans of Lydia Yuknavitch, Amy Bender, and Kei Ming Chang, authors I've never heard of. The final edition will include 6 full-page black and white illustrations by artist Jenny Eichbusch. And I did take a sneak peek at the illustrations. It's really gorgeous, actually. So I think that this would play really well if you're interested in short stories, also the art angle, and stories about women through a woman's lens. I think that that's really the interesting part here because we are outside of Women in Horror Month, but whatever. Coming up next, we have Femme Fatale, is how I want to pronounce it. It's Femme Feral, I think, but I want it to rhyme with Femme Fatale so badly. So Femme Fatale, a novel by Sam Beck-Bessinger. And this cover is so yellow. It's like, I don't know if they can produce this yellow in real life, right? In print. I think that this yellow only looks this yellow on a screen, but it's coupled with a very bright red. I really would like to see this. I saw a cover that was maybe this yellow in the printed version of The Watchmen, and that was very yellow too, right? But yeah, it has a claw with painted red nails tearing through the cover. We've seen similar werewolf type style covers like this before where there's a claw shredding through, and I think we've even seen painted fingernail ones before, but Femme Feral or Femme Fatale if you're me. The font is called Bourbon, and I think it's adapted so that it's kind of like the serifs are curved over, like it's a font that's coming to get you. I don't know if I've done a good job of describing a font that's coming to get you, but here we are. The head of a company that she started from the ground up, the worried mother of a secretive daughter, and the wife of an easygoing man who's always picking up the slack, Ellie is already juggling way too much. So it's an inconvenient time for her to find herself beset by strange physical changes, hair sprouting in new places, running hot, trouble sleeping, losing time, finding bloodstains on her clothing. And underneath it all, this boiling rage that threatens to disrupt a life she's worked so hard to build. Her doctor diagnoses perimenopause. But it's another 28-day cycle that's taking hold, one that involves fur and teeth and a not insignificant amount of howling at the moon, plus incredible strength and speed. Her new power is thrilling, and as it turns out, there are problems that you can solve with violence. The terrible new hire who is sabotaging her careful plans, the creep who's stalking her daughter. Only the beast within isn't that easy to control, and the bloody trail is getting harder to hide. As it would be. I mean, geez. I am very interested in the way that these books play against one another. One a little more horror, creature feature, but the other a little more subtle perhaps, but both speaking to a very different point in the modern successful woman as portrayed in media. Like you have that 50s kind of pinup or housewife kind of thing going on, successful, pretty, daring, right? And then the daring of a businesswoman, right? I like the way that those are playing off one another. Both May 12th, both very gorgeous covers, right? On May 19th, we go into a whole different kind of maximalist, gorgeous cover in Decomposition Book, a novel by Sarah Van Ost. And I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. The cover, it just has sort of a slanted white serif font, very plain decomposition book. It is sort of superimposed over this picture of a girl in sort of the colors of old world oil paint, where they're kind of earthy and muted, and flowers and bugs and earthworms and ferns, the sort of things you would find on a forest floor around a decomposing body. Ava thought the great tragedy of her life would be getting stuck in a dead-end office job. Reality looks more grim than student loan repayments and watery office coffee when she gets lost on an ill-fated hike with two of her co-workers. Meanwhile, Savannah has been cowering in her parents' lake house in upstate New York for weeks, barely coping after a traumatic falling out with her mercurial best friend. Her days blend together in a hazy swirl of clinically concerning overthinking and alcohol until she chases her nightly bottle of wine with Ambien and wakes up in the woods behind her house next to a dead body. This particular dead person also comes with a handy journal about their last 6 months trapped in the woods. Savannah cozies up to her new friend and realizes that she feels closer to Ava than anyone else, and that she may not be able to let her go. She can call the cops later, right? Kind of thing. I love this description. At first I was like, man, I don't want to read like May. It's the film May, kind of, all over. But I love the getting lost in the forest thing. They spoil it right away in the summary, right? So it's got to happen in the first chapter or so. It can't be a whole story with you knowing from reading the back jacket that Ava's going to die. I mean, that's got to happen in the first chapter. It also reminds me of the film that I spoke about previously, Decay, where a guy spends some time with a dead body, right? And not in necessarily a sexual manner, but this sort of very lonely person manner, and very interested. So also, May 19th, we were supposed to see a reprint from Hachette, Shy Girl, a novel by Mia Ballard. It is unavailable. I'm not going to get into why it's unavailable. I'm sure you've heard why the novel Shy Girl is unavailable, but it is nevertheless unavailable. And I'm using the word unavailable other than canceled because that is what has happened to it at a very basic level. Sit, speak, stay. Lonely, broke, and depressed. Dia is desperate for a lifeline when Nathan, a wealthy stranger on a sugar daddy dating site, approaches her with a very specific offer that she can't refuse. The instructions are simple, he says. For 8 hours a day, you must wear the collar, drink from the bowl, sleep in the cage, be a dog, be his dog. Then she can go home and be Gia again, and if she ever feels uncomfortable or unsafe, she can always leave. Those are the terms of the agreement, but Gia soon finds out that Nathan isn't a man who keeps his promises. In this harrowing tale of survival and revenge, Mia Ballard crafts a visceral, unflinching descent into the dark heart of lost autonomy and feral rage it awakens. I did not jump on the self-published version. I don't know if it's still out there. Yes, I would like to read this book someday. Not for $900, though. I will not read it for $900. But I would like to read this book someday because from the description and from what I've heard, aside from the, let's call it a scandal that has been viral across the internet for the past couple months, aside from all of that, this reminds me of like Secretary. It's a much better written 50 Shades of Grey. I'm interested in this book, so I really, really hope that someday the dust settles and maybe we can read it, despite it being having the problems that it's having, I guess, because I don't know. I would have to read it to really judge that, I think. And we'd also need a lie detector and truth serum or something, right? So, I mean, all I can say is I love the cover. This cover is cool. I don't know what font that is, but I like it because it's sort of almost like a font that has been given a drop shadow and then tilted. And it's gorgeous. And they've got that sky showing through the font over top of this dog that is, they did some good art direction on the cover this time around. I wasn't interested in it when it was self-published because the cover didn't look interesting to me. And I just thought it was, I don't know if there was some finessing to the summary since when it was picked up for distribution or what. But that summary does sound interesting to me. So hopefully someday we'll get to read it. Instead, on May 19th, we have a book that we can read, The Dorians by Nick Cutter. And I'll be so lucky to hear Nick Cutter talk in the fall at DreadCon. So this is sort of a sci-fi story, and the cover leads you to believe that. It's got the back of a woman that's lit in red on a black and greenish sort of background, and you realize there's jellyfish tendrils descending from above. The title is green and kind of on a slant, leading you to believe it's sort of like a Close Encounters of the Third Kind sort of thing right away, with the sci-fi colors going on here with green and red and this bright colored thing that is attached to her spine. So yeah, it's not Nick Cutter's first time on a secluded island. So if you liked The Troop, I think you're going to like this. On a remote island in the Canadian wilderness, 5 elderly volunteers from different walks of life are given a tantalizing offer to stall their biological clocks or even reverse them, restoring their lost youth. The chance to put death on pause forever, perhaps. The remarkable secret lies in the high-tech harnessing of an ancient and extraordinary biological agent, one with no conscience, yet possessed with a single-minded purpose that has helped it persist for eons, the will to survive. The dark heart of unbridled human ambition finds its apex in the unholy experiment that now tests the limits of both creator and subject, eclipsing all bounds of morality and sanity. You could almost take that last sentence and apply it to like 1,000 other books. It's interesting that they took that tack with it at the end. I usually don't read, as I've said before, the fluff that's attached. That doesn't feel like fluff because it does sound like it's part of the plot. Dark heart of unbridled human ambition. Yes, we just read about that. Apex in an unholy experiment. Most definitely. That now tests the limits of both creator and subject. Yes, it does. Eclipsing all bounds of morality and sanity. Most likely, I agree it would. It just doesn't tell you anything. Weird. It's a good sentence, but useless. All the same, I am very interested in reading The Troop. I have a review of Nick Cutter's The Troop up on the show still, but it's very old and I need to reread it and redo that review because I loved it. I was like everybody else, this is a new Stephen King, right? And I need to read more of his most recent work because I haven't made time for it and I need to. This might be a really good excuse to get back into Nick Cutter. Incidentally, Craig Davidson has a new book out as well. On May 19th, we also have something with a gorgeous cover. This cover is very reminiscent of The Haunting of Sorrow's Leap, so you'll know I already am a fan. It's a gray sky with a huge cliff and a person standing on it with something that looks almost like a black letter font. And the black letter font is not necessarily a script calligraphic font, but a brush and typeset calligraphic font, or a typeset looking calligraphy font. This is probably Gaudi, maybe. It's a gorgeous little font. It's all lowercase, which I like. Just black on that gray, different shades of gray in this stormy sky. Looks wonderful. The Temptation of Charlotte North by Camilla Bruce. And Camilla Bruce is an author I've never heard of before. Again, May 19th. A rebellious young woman desperate to escape her predetermined life. A handsome but married priest who has caught her eye. And the resolute schoolteacher who values science above all. In 1910, in a small remote island that boasts more sheep than people, the fates of Charlotte North, Jasper Hill, and Ruth Russell are perched on the edge of a cliff, and a strange wind is blowing. When an ancient tower, rumored to have imprisoned a witch, crumbles, it releases something powerful, a restless spirit, that knocks inside the walls and sends household objects flying. A spirit that seems to be drawn to Charlotte, who sees in it a potential for power and change. But first she must overcome Jasper's piety and Ruth's fierce determination to banish the terrifying entity. Only then will the power be hers to claim the life that she desires. Okay, like I said, kind of many things going on, but a singular horror goal. I think this is just a classic horror novel, a paranormal haunting, like it called itself Jeff or something like that. But with that seclusionist and the witchcraft sort of aspect of it, I think it's got a fantastical kind of story going on here. And then we move on to May 26th with Dead Weight by Hilda Knutsdotter. And the cover here doesn't even look like a horror novel at all. It's got the head of a statue, like a Greek Roman statue that is lying on the ground in a sort of a pinky peachy background and a bold marker font. This could be any genre, really, honestly. So it's sort of a shame that we have these sort of like nondescript covers, but I think that the romance and the meet cute sort of stories are having the same sort of problem with cartoony covers, where they might get some spicy romance that looks like it's something for kids. This, I don't know, this looks like it could be a political intrigue or something like that, a heist novel, right? An Icelandic knight may hide secrets and affairs, or even bodies, in this gruesomely cathartic horror thriller from the author of The Night Guest. That's where I remember the name. Unar was living a normal, if lonely, life until a black cat showed up at her door. When she tracks down the cat's wayward owner, she finds a young woman just as lost and in need of help. Like a gust of cold air on a Reykjavik night, Asta and her pet slip into Unar's life. It's unexpected but welcome. Unar likes the company and she begins to rely on Asta in turn. But like a black cat, trouble has been trailing her new friend, and Unar is the only one there for Asta when things take a violent turn. The two women quickly learn nothing tests a friendship like blood on your hands. The translator of this book was Mary Robinette Cowell, and I don't know if she worked on The Night Guest, but I've listened to her on the podcast Writing Excuses. It's more like crime writers on that for the most part, but it's a good podcast if you like writing podcasts. And the last book on our list, The House of Martins by Talatlo Tamase. It comes out on May 26th. And the cover doesn't look super horror-y. It's got red text with a blood drippy kind of thing and a blue background of night sky and black shadows of a house or church on the cover. So it's hard to discern what's really going on, but it has a house on the cover and a blood drippy kind of look. So it's got to be horror, right? Anea Sabea is missing. Before her disappearance, Anea was a brilliant writer, a rising star invited to a prestigious writing residency at Hunter House, an eerie colonial mansion on the slopes of Devil's Peak. Anea was supposed to craft a next great African literary masterpiece, and so were 4 other young emerging writers, all competing for a grand prize. But Anea never made it home. When a sensationalized true crime podcast about her emerges, revealing everything that happened to them at Gunter House, her sister is both skeptical and furious. With each surreal episode, they begin to piece together a truth worse than she ever could have imagined. Gunter House itself inflicts distorted and terrible supernatural visitations, pushing Anya to tell a story that no one dares. Exorcising the house's endless cycle of evil requires a sacrifice that neither Anya nor her fellows are ready to make. So yes, dyed-in-the-wool horror haunted house, sort of like The Year Without a Summer. That's what it reminds me of quite a lot. So if you've already read these books, no doubt there's a lot of review copies out there. And I'm particularly interested in the Shy Girl book, of course, like a lot of people who haven't read it and aren't really like hanging on with bated breath to all of the scandal stuff that's been going on the past couple months, just kind of vaguely interested, but think that summary sounds pretty cool. Let me know in the comments. But yeah, coming up next, there will be a review of All the Fiends of Hell by Adam Neville. Thank you so much for watching and have an spooky day.